I'm going to share those tools with you. I'm going to explain how I use them to give you the framework that you need to go away and actually try it, to feel confident trying that with some of your learners as soon as possible, to get feedback on that. So the first and most important thing about a DALT approach is the ability to communicate with your learners. So email, in my opinion, is not enough. If you've ever tried to communicate with learners through email, it's something that it's very easy to ignore emails. They're not often replied to very quickly. People can really leave them a long time before replying. So it doesn't give the same kind of, it doesn't put the same kind of pressure on them. I don't want to say pressure because it sounds scary, but it is about putting pressure on someone to get back to you. Things like WhatsApp as a chat app, for me, it's the one I used. It's my personal favorite. It's a really, really versatile, really powerful tool that you can use to deliver online training. And I'll tell you why. Because adding someone on WhatsApp is extremely easy. Convincing a learner to install WhatsApp on their phone is extremely easy. They don't need to create an account. They just need to put in their phone number and it's done. It only works on phones, of course, not tablets. You can also access it on your computer, on a browser. It's possible, but I did my DALT lessons through phone conversations. What you can do in WhatsApp is you add somebody, you add a learner, you create a group, and that group, if you've got individual lessons, would just be Frank's group. You add Frank into that group and you get in, then that's your one-on-one lesson. You can contain your chat, the lessons that you're going to deliver and the rubric that you're going to be delivering within that chat. And you can share a lot of content directly in WhatsApp. Centralization for me is really, really important. As somebody who's a bit of a geek, I know that people like things to be centralized. They like their digital content to all be in one place. If you're sharing something to Facebook, you want it to appear directly in Facebook. You want people to see it in the post if it's an image or if it's a video. So WhatsApp's the same. If you put an image in there, it'll appear in the message. If you put a YouTube video in a WhatsApp message, it will appear, and you can now, as of recently, play the YouTube video directly in the phone. So you don't have to go out of the chat to play a video. So if you send that to a learner as a lesson activity with questions, even within the chat, that they can reply to those questions within the chat, the video can be played by the learner directly within the chat. So that, it's all nice and centralized. It's quick and easy for the learner to reply to your lessons. So you're essentially creating your online classroom, your online method of communication through WhatsApp.
So what's interesting here is that you're advising people to not rely on email, to not use email. You're saying that it's not effective and efficient as a way of contacting students outside of their lessons with the teacher.
No, I mean, even just to give another example of why that's the case, using WhatsApp, and one of the key things in DALT for me is, so like I said, the presence of the teacher. To go a bit further, for me, the presence of the teacher is really easy to achieve quickly by audio message and video message. WhatsApp, you can record both audio messages and video messages directly in the application just by clicking a button, pointing the camera at your face and speaking. It's really quick and really easy. And the audio will go directly into the chat and you can play it directly in the chat. So if you're trying to contact a learner to tell them, okay, so next week, I want you to do a lesson about X, so please watch this video. You can explain that to them via audio. It's even quicker than typing it. So it saves you time, but also the learner will be listening to your voice and hearing you speaking directly to them and know that you're speaking directly to them. So it's as if they're sitting in front of you, but they're not. And when they're completing the activity, you're not in front of them. So you've spent 20 seconds recording an audio message, sending it via WhatsApp with the rubric, and they're going to spend, 5-10 minutes, maybe more, watching whatever video you've sent them, trying to answer the comprehension questions, typing them into the WhatsApp chat, or even replying via audio, recording themselves. So that the learner is going to spend considerably more time responding to your activities than you will setting the activity up and giving feedback via WhatsApp on that activity. So that's, for me, that's something where it's email. For an email, you would have to record yourself in an MP3 and attach it into the email and send it, and maybe it's too big and it doesn't get received by their server, or it's blocked because they're with a professional email address. It's a headache that I think you can avoid really easily by just convincing your learner to use WhatsApp. It's not as invasive as using SMS. So, you know, I've never managed to convince somebody to use SMS to communicate with me. It's very private. WhatsApp, people, from my experience, people really don't care about using WhatsApp. It's not an intimate thing that they feel like you're invading their personal life. I think they really appreciate it. They like to get those notifications popping up on their phone. If you need to, and you know, one of the key things in DALT is supporting your learner, reminding them that activities need to be completed, not because they're lazy, but because everybody is forgetful, and people will forget to, you know, if you say, you know, in 3 days I want you to reply to me, they'll forget. So if you send them a message really quickly, just 2 days later, saying, hey, by the way, the deadline's tomorrow, do you need any help? That'll pop up on their phone. They get a notification. They, you know, they feel that presence again because you're popping up on their phone with a private message, and they get reminded and say, oh, I have to record, I have to do that activity, and they get in and they'll record the answer to your activity on time. So there's a huge number of advantages to using WhatsApp as your means of digital communication. Just to give you an example of how well it works, and something that I have difficulty sometimes getting people to believe. When I did with this method, when I was doing it more full time, testing it out, these learners that I got to be my guinea pigs, sort of a dozen learners that I did individual classes with, I spoke to them on the phone once, and I never spoke to them live again. Everything I said to them, everything I communicated with them afterwards was over WhatsApp. So
this is pushing DALT to the extreme of not having any interaction, any conversational interaction with them in any sort of form, whether it be a video conference or a telephone call or a face-to-face lesson. You tried to push it so that there was sort of asynchronous interaction through video and audio, but it wasn't at the same time, just to see how it worked.
Yeah, exactly. So it's difficult to comprehend sometimes, because I like to define it as I didn't have any live contact with the learners, but I had a lot of conversations, and the same amount of conversation and the same amount of exchange and interaction I had, because I was recording myself every time I spoke to them. I was recording my voice. So they were hearing me and I was hearing them. We were having a conversation, but we were not synchronous. We were not there at the same time doing a Skype call or something like that. We were doing it over video. It's like doing it over the message when you phone somebody and they don't pick up and you leave them a message. It's like just doing that all the time, just speaking with each other via recorded voicemails. But it worked, and I was with them for 10 lessons, and the whole time they were motivated, they were interested in talking to me, they were happy, they sounded, you know, they were enjoying answering the activities that I was giving them, but we were never ever face to face, we were never speaking live, and it worked. So it's just to show that that's the potential in using something like WhatsApp with the DALT approach, is that you can really reduce your training time, still keep your learners extremely happy with your talent, you know, talented exercises and materials that you've created that you're delivering to them, just like you would if you were delivering them in the classroom. So I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but I hope I'm getting that idea.
I think it's we have to move on though, Richard, because it's already 20.
It's difficult when you're passionate about something, you just don't want to. Okay, but yeah, people want to go to, I don't know, have dinner or something. So me too. Anyway, the next part is kind of following on from that. Like I said before, you know, we're using videos, a lot of videos in the DALT approach. For me, videos are a key part of DALT as much as they are in the classroom. Probably everybody here has a whole bunch of YouTube or TED video worksheets that you've either developed yourself or that you've taken from you know, one of the published course books that exist that have TED videos or that use TED videos. And that's, you know, for me, that's something that still you should be doing in the DALT approach as well. You should be using videos as the content for your lesson. You should be developing videos for grammar lessons to look at a particular grammar point, speaking lessons to use, you know, for example, to show intonation and to practice that. For listening, of course, for listening for gist, listening for detail. I mean, it's just the perfect kind of tool for that. And you'll see if you look at the 5 free lesson plans that I'll be sending as a reward for coming to the webinar, you'll see that I've taken one TED video and I've done 5 different activities. I've done phrasal verbs, I've done past simple, I've done time expressions with prepositions, I've done speaking intonation. So you know, I've done a bit of everything, a lot of listening for gist, a lot of listening for detail. So there's a lot of possibility with using YouTube videos. It's important to remember that most of the videos you're going to be using, they might be long. It's good to choose videos that are not longer than For me, I say 3 minutes, 5 minutes maximum, but try to choose videos that are short. If you can't achieve your lesson objective within that time, you're probably overloading the learner with language. So keep it short. And also to consider that these are native speakers. So if you're working with elementary learners, you have to really think about how you're going to design your activities. If you look at the free lesson plans I'll send you, there's one for an elementary learner with a TED video. It's a bit difficult to believe, but using the rubric and using the activities the right way, it is possible. And it's something that you can have a look at. I've got all the materials in there for you to try it out. And so, it's important for you to keep that in mind when you're designing your worksheets, which you'll be delivering to learners through Google Docs, for example, or through the chat in WhatsApp. And also you have to, when you choose a video, it has to be in the spirit of creating a pedagogically sound activity, which we'll look at a bit later on with the key tenets of DALT. But it has to be the content that's going to be upon which you're going to build a pedagogically sound lesson, where they're going to discover some language, they're going to discover it in the video, they're going to analyze the language using the video, and then they're going to do their own sort of practice of that language afterwards, exterior to the video, but on the same theme. So really keeping that, what you do in the classroom, keeping that pedagogic talent in developing activities in everything you do, including in your DALT activities. Another way to do videos, if you're worried about using native materials, or you want to do something with a lower level, then record yourself. I did that with the 5 free lesson plans I'll be sending you. I recorded 5 videos of myself that I made into language activities, so you can see a little bit what I did there. I used a lot of different techniques to do these videos, and it's a way that I could lead into my lessons. Me personally, I lead into my lessons with a self-recorded video, because you can reuse them. If you don't use the learner's name, you can reuse them with other learners in the future. You can create a library of self-recorded videos that fit into nice lesson plans. I mean, the ones that I'm sending you today, I could use them with as many learners as I want, because I never mention names, and the video can be recycled with the content of the lesson and the activities. So it's really a way to build.
They can be recycled in WhatsApp as well, can they? Recorded videos on WhatsApp.
Yeah, you can. So you can save a WhatsApp video to your phone, or you can save a photo to your phone, but you have to do that. You have to remember to save the video.
Okay.
And I don't know if it automatically appears. Maybe it does. I don't want to say something stupid, so I would say be careful if you're going to do it in WhatsApp and record directly into WhatsApp. Then be sure that the video has saved to your phone, or saved into your photos library, or whatever it is. If you're doing it like I did through YouTube, you can use the YouTube application. You just open the YouTube application on your phone. I recommend the phone or the tablet, because in the phone and the tablet YouTube application, there's a button to push to start recording yourself immediately. And it's as simple as click to record, say your piece, click stop, and it uploads. You put a name on it, it uploads, and that's ready to go. That's ready to share with a learner. So that's a really, really good way. So I did that 5 times with these 5 lesson plans. So you can go and have a look at what I've done. And I think that's great, because then you have that library and you can come back to that. You can put the links. I put the links to the videos in my worksheets, so then I don't need to worry about it anymore. That's it. It's done. I just can reuse that worksheet with someone else. The learner clicks on the link, they see the video. So it's a really nice way to lead into a lesson, but also to create some extra content, or to be the content for the lesson. If you're teaching something other than English, you might have difficulty finding materials. I was working with somebody, a freelancer, who was teaching Russian. It was impossible to find anything of value on YouTube for teaching Russian. There's a lot of really weird videos out there. I don't know why, but I had a weird experience there. So I really recommended to her, record your own videos, make yourself a library. In a year's time, you're going to be just recycling those lessons. You're not going to be doing any work anymore, apart from sending the things to the learners and then giving them their personalized feedback, sending them some sort of message or video, giving them some sort of personalized feedback after the lesson. But it reduces the teaching time down to a minimum, but still you're in there and the learner will be motivated. So it's really, really answering the question of how do we get the cost down in our training. For me anyway, that answered that question. The more you build up your library of videos, of worksheets, the more you're going to have the kind of library you need to realize that dream of building your own online language training offer and increasing your profit margins. So that's video side. The other side is, of course, using online resources. There are a lot of worksheets. We've talked about worksheets there. There are a lot of worksheets that already exist on a lot of websites out there, that a lot of them are free as well, that you can use as the basis for your online lesson. And then you can build your own videos, your own video feedback or video lead-in to lessons around those materials, and they take on a whole new life when you've put yourself into these activities. So it's one way. If you like these kind of, if you like using One Stop English, or you like using BBC Learning English activities, by all means, do that. Even if you're using a published work like Macmillan and Company, there are ways of using that within DALT. And that's a question I get quite often is, can I continue? I really like business result. Can I continue using that in my lessons? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that fits into the method, as long as you put that framework around it so that you're introducing the activity yourself. You're sending the PDF scan of the book page with the rubric that you want them to do, or you record a video explaining what you want them to do with that page. And then afterwards, then when they're completing the activity in Company, for example, that they're sending you the answers, and you're telling them that it's correct or not. And at the end, there's maybe a speaking activity. Well, they take that speaking activity from the published book, and they record themselves doing it, and they send that recording to you, and then you send them feedback via recording as well. So you're taking what you would do with a page from a book in a classroom, and you're putting that online. Again, I'm repeating myself, but I hope that's getting in, that this is not a way of sending people activities that they can do at home. This is a way of conducting classroom lessons, even with published materials, 100% online if you need to, right? If that's part of your program. So Macmillan and Company 3, I put that up there because they happen to, if you buy the teacher's version, if you're teaching business English and you have the teacher's version of an In Company 3 book, they give you a code to access macmillanandcompany3.com, where you can access all of the MP3s from the book, all the audio. You can access videos that they do in the book as well, MP4s. You can also access PDFs of all of the role plays that they had in the second version of the book, which for me, for my teaching experience, I loved the In Company role plays. Maybe I'm a bit of a geek, but I loved them. They were great. Some of my favorite characters in those role plays. And so those are things, that's a huge bank of resources that you can use to already get your DALT approach started, to already have some sort of resources there to build your own resources around. But it's a good basis to start from. And then of course things like word reference, it's a great site if you want to send somebody a translation of a word they're having difficulty with. You send them a link to that through WhatsApp, send them a link to the translation of that word through WhatsApp, and then ask them to take the context sentence that's in there and maybe make their own example out of that or something like that. And so there's a lot of possibilities there. The next tool that is, in French we say incontournable, so that would be, I don't know, how would you say that, Josh, in English? Incontournable. You can't do without it.
Oh, you can't do that. Absolutely,
You just can't do without it. Yeah, I mean, I hate to plug. The people might hate me for plugging the big evil giant that is Google. I'm sorry. Yeah, I appreciate that. I really appreciate it. It is Big Brother. It is stealing all our personal information or whatever. I can appreciate that. I'm not belittling anybody who has that opinion, but Google has so much potential for DALT. I simply cannot avoid it for a free tool, and I'll tell you why. I'll just really quickly run through, because I could spend hours talking about this, and I want to get finished so we can all get away and have some dinner. Let's go through the possibilities here. It is, in my opinion, the Swiss Army knife of teaching online if you want to avoid using a learning management system like what we saw earlier with Moodle. Moodle's a learning management system. It is my proposition to you that you can replace learning management systems with a bit of elbow grease and a bit of investment. You can replace it with Google apps that are the apps that come with the Google suite of software. So examples. Google Docs. Google Docs is an online version of Microsoft Word. I use it, and you'll see in the lesson planning examples I've sent to you, I use it to create worksheets. So I put the rubric for the worksheet in there. I put the direct links to the videos or to the articles, news articles or whatever. I put them into the Google Doc, and I put the questions that I want my learners to answer in there, or the rubric for what activity I want them to record themselves with in there. And they reply in the same document, because Google Docs is collaborative. If you invite somebody with a link to edit that document, they can write their answers directly in there. So you can kind of have one template version, duplicate that for Susie. So I'm going to say, lesson 1, Susie's version, I'm going to put that in a folder. Maybe I have a folder on Google Drive that's specifically dedicated to Susie and our English training together. And then I'm going to tell her, okay, here's the link. It's a specific link to that document. Please put your answers in the document. Susie's going to go into that document. She's going to write her answers directly in there. And then I'm going to come in, and when she tells me she's done, I'm going to come in and I'm going to write the corrections to her answers under what she's written, and I'm going to put it in red, or I'm going to put it in green, or whatever you want. I'm going to make it colorful. So it's an incredibly, incredibly powerful tool for doing online worksheets. So that's Google Docs. Google Sheets. Google Sheets is Google's version of Excel. In Google Sheets, you'll see later, I'm going to send you a link to a document that I use. That's a copy of a version that I used when I was doing my own DALT training. Google Sheets is really, really good to have an online record of who has done what lesson when, that you can update really easily by going online anywhere, on your phone or on the computer or wherever. You can update that with, I've got Susie's tab in my Google Sheet. I've got the different lessons I'm going to assign her. I've got when I assigned them as a date, the deadline, and then when she completed it, I fill that in when she completes it. I use conditional formatting, so it shows in green things that I need to do next, and in red things that are overdue. So it's a great tool for keeping yourself organized and knowing who's done what, who needs to do what, who do I need to give work to next. Just that organization for DALT is really, really important, because you can very easily get lost if you start doing it with 10, 20 learners. You start getting quite lost in terms of who has replied, and therefore I need to send the next thing to them, because that's something you have to keep in mind. Part of DALT is agreeing with your learners. If you send me an answer, I will reply to you within 24 hours or within 48 hours. So that means you need to set up your Google Sheet to remind, to have that green or red conditional formatting if something is coming up within 48 hours, so you know that you need to reply to that, because you forget really easily without a learning management system that automatically tells you what you need to do next. So that's for Google Sheets. There's also Google Slides, for example. It's their PowerPoint version. You could get, again, it's collaborative, so you could get your learners to go in there to make a presentation, to build the presentation, for you to correct the presentation with them, and then for them to come, for example, either in a live video conference, or even just recording themselves over YouTube, giving the presentation, or maybe they have a particular software they can use to share their screen and record the presentation. But it means that you can construct together a presentation and use that as a lesson activity. Google Forms, which is the little purple icon below there. Google Forms is a place where you can create quiz questions. So if you want to have automatically corrected quiz questions as part of your offer, then Google Forms, you can do that for free. And you can create one form. It'll have lots, you could recycle that, send that to as many people as you want. It informs you every time somebody replies to it. And you can go in and see what they've done. It can either give them feedback automatically on their questions, or it could be an open question where it's scored by you. So you have to go in and see and look at the question and give it a score out of 6 or out of 10 or whatever you want. But you can define those things in Google Forms. So I really recommend experimenting with that, because it is nice sometimes to have automatically corrected activities especially for lower levels who need to have that repetition and grammar practice. So that's another possibility, Google Forms. Google Calendar, and I'm going on and on and on about it, but Google Calendar is a way that you can set up a lesson planner. So you can put in deadlines into Google Calendar. You could share that calendar with the learners that you're with, so that they can see when the next lesson's coming up, when the next deadline is coming up. You can put reminders in there that will remind everybody the calendar is shared with. Send them an email to say, this is a reminder from Google Calendar, lesson 2 part 1 is due tomorrow. So it's a way to do that, to automate in a certain way, to automate your deadlines and your notifications. Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts is their video chat system, like Skype. But the really cool thing about Hangouts is it's free for up to 8 people, and you can integrate YouTube in there. So when you're doing a video conference with someone, this is again, in the context of having your own online school, so you're not face to face or in person with the learners, but you're over video conference. You can bring YouTube videos into a Google Hangouts call, and you can play the YouTube video in a way that everybody sees it playing at the same time. You can pause it, and everybody will see the video paused. So that's one nice way to be able to do some live work with your students and to bring the content in. You can also put the Google Doc worksheets that you've got, you can put them in the Hangouts so people can edit them simultaneously, and you can talk about the questions as they're editing them. If you're giving feedback, maybe for a DALT online lesson that they did before, you can give that feedback by looking at the document all together, editing it at the same time all together. So it's a great way to conduct live video lessons.
Just because I want to add on to that. We're on GoToWebinar right now, and they also have their own sort of platform, but it's interesting because you can't really use video properly in GoToWebinar, for example. Whereas in Google Hangouts, you can. Now, you know, I've chosen GoToWebinar for lots of different reasons, but when it comes to the actual training format, it's great to be able to use video in a video conferencing facility. And what's also good for Google Hangouts is you can record the session, you know, and then have that also, you know, then you can choose different sequences and have that saved into your YouTube channel, and then have people work on that as well. So that's you know, the whole sort of saving video capacity, whether it's through the conference sessions, whether it's you as a trainer doing it through WhatsApp, or whether it's even the learner recording themselves and then seeing their progress because they're actually saving their videos. For me, that's a fascinating and massively underexploited use of video and recording in online training.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you know, going back to the point about recording yourself, if you're recording part of your video conference together, it could be you're recording the role play that you're doing together, and then that video could form a worksheet. You could make a worksheet out of that for the next lesson, or that could be a feedback, you know, a point of feedback for the next lesson for them to go away and to answer questions about that you've asked, you know, and they're listening to themselves and doing a language activity that's based on their own participation.
Ask them to do it again, you know, if they're in difficulties, you know, record that sequence, send it to them, show them it's okay, you know, work on it, do better, record yourself.
Even better, and something we've mentioned in every webinar and training we've done, get them to record themselves at the beginning of a training course doing whatever they need to do. So if they need to have meetings in English, do a meeting with them and record that, put that online, and then at the end of their 20-hour, 40-hour course, record the same meeting again, and get them to sit down and watch the two of them and be like, do you see you've actually made progress? You can actually visually see in front of you, and you can hear that you've made progress. Our training has worked, you know, and it's the ultimate proof that training has worked. So it's great. Anyway, I better race on because we're really running out of time.